What's up, Brenham Crossfit family? We're back with another episode. Today, it's just Carli and I. We get into a rather lengthy discussion.
We're very passionate people.
We are. About habits. We talk about habits. We talk about relationships. We talk joy, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah.
But give it a listen. I think you'll find some nuggets in there that you can take home and hopefully help pick better habits and make some good choices to put you down the path you're looking to go. So give that a listen. As far as announcements go, new swag, check out the hat. Those of you watching on video, new hats are in, shirts are in, another hoodie order. Almost said hoodie order. Hoodie order gonna be placed. So we're good on that. But hopefully, if this is your first time listening, you'll find some quality information out of this. So give it a listen. What's up, guys? So back with another episode. It's just me and Carli today.
Hello.
So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is our habits. You know, I think that's something that Carli and I have discussed about. We talk a lot about that with our nutrition clients, is the power of good habits and the power of bad habits. And then I went to church a few weeks ago and heard a pretty impactful sermon about habits. And 100% honesty here, this is totally a recap of that sermon that I think everybody should have. If Shelby, I think, actually posted it in our group. But it's something we all need to hear. And I think Carli kind of has some special input on that since she has a lot of our nutrition clients and can weigh in on some of those habits. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think habits are super important. I saw this quote on Pinterest one time. I'm a big Pinterest fan. That's where I get all my quotes.
Me too.
That's why I'm very wise. It's always Pinterest.
Thanks, Pinterest.
But it was basically just like, what you are today is because of the choices you made yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. So I think that that's something I try to always keep in mind, because every decision you make and all the habits you have truly make you who you are. So whether they be good habits or bad habits, you just always should be thinking about how that's going to affect you tomorrow or the next day or 20 years from now.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's kind of, the first thing I wrote down on my notes is, we reap what we sow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that, whatever we are sowing the seeds of today, whether that be good nutrition or working out or sleeping late or hanging around the wrong people or whatever it is, we will reap that harvest tomorrow, the next day, 6 months from now, 6 years from now, whatever. But you are sowing the seeds today.
Yeah, for sure.
For whatever you're going to get. And you can't expect to sow your seeds and expect a different harvest, right?
That's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Like doing the same thing over and over again.
Right. Like I can't expect, well, hey, you know what? I really want corn, but I planted green beans. I can't expect corn to come. Right. So you have to put the work in for it, right? It's not just going to show up one day and you're like, hey, you know what? One day I'm just going to keep doing this. And one of these days I'll make a bunch of money.
Right.
That's not how it works. Like I have to have a plan to get there and work my way through that. And those of you watching on the video, we put our notes on our phone. So we're constantly having to look down.
We're not just texting each other or something.
So, I think the next line to look at that is go through is there is a correlation between our past decisions and our current situation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're not happy or vice versa, you're really happy with where you're at and you want to stay where you're at in this kind of current state of happiness, if you will, you need to look back and say, okay, what have I done that's got me to this point? Because I need to continue to do that. Right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. You don't want to say, like, you wake up really early, and that helps you have a great day, and it helps you have a really great morning routine before you have to go to work and go through the rest of your day. And that's something that's like really essential to your happiness and what makes you feel good. Why would you say, okay, now I'm happy with the way this is going, so I can sleep until 9 a.m. instead of waking up at 5 or whatever it may be? It doesn't make sense, because obviously you're not going to feel as good if you wake up later. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the inverse of that is if you're not happy with where you're at, looking back and say, okay, what have I done? Mm-hmm. Right? Kind of like what you just said. If I'm not happy with my fitness, well, have I been consistent at the gym? Have I eaten well? Have I done all these things? Well, no. So the only person you can be mad at is really yourself, right? Like, right. That's it. Right. You're the one that made those choices. And
I think that's something I get a lot with my nutrition clients, or like potential clients that walk through the door, or just gym members in general. People are always asking me like, well, how can I do this? How can I do that? How can I be better at this? And I'm like, it's literally all in the realm of nutrition. It's all what you put in your mouth. So if you're putting cake in your mouth every single day, and you're wondering why you can't run 200 meters without feeling like you're going to pass out, maybe you should reevaluate what you're doing.
Exactly. And I think, to steal from Pastor Will, that kind of reap what you sow, you will not reap what you do not sow. Right? Yeah. So even if the worst plan is no plan at all. So not having any plan to do something, right? I'm not going to do anything. Right. I'm just not going to go to the gym. I'm just not going to care about what I eat. I'm just not going to do these things. Well, guess what?
Nothing's going to happen.
Nothing's going to happen, right?
It's the worst thing you could do for yourself, is just not take action over your life. And that's like probably one of my biggest pet peeves, is when somebody is genuinely upset about something not happening, but then they just sit there and they cry about it, or they don't do anything, instead of getting off the couch and actually putting it into action and doing what fills their cup up every single day.
Yeah. I'm kind of a big fan of, an executed plan is better than the best laid plan. Mm-hmm. Right? I'd rather you just do something. Right. Yeah. Like, let's get the ball moving, and we'll figure it out as we go. Shelby probably hates it, but I'm a big fan. I'm like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
He is, like, very much so.
Let's just get going. Yeah. Because I don't want to sit here and let's talk about all the what ifs or X, Y, and Z. Let's just get going.
Yeah. Andy comes up with a plan, and he's like, all right, we're doing it tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, we're doing it tomorrow.
We're doing it tomorrow.
And we just do it. And if it sucks, it sucks, and we learn.
Yeah, but at least we're doing something, right? And if I'm going to correlate that to the gym, like, just show up. Mm-hmm. The hardest part is walking through the door. Right. You just got to get here. Who cares what the workout is? Who cares if you don't know how to do a bar muscle up, or you don't know what an inverted push up is, or, whatever you want to call it, right? Right. Just show up.
And that's probably something a lot of you can relate to, whether you're one of our current gym members, and maybe you just started, or maybe you've been doing it for a while, but you're injured, and you're like trying to come back from that. Also, sorry if you're watching this on video. I'm really bad at looking at the camera. Or if you're someone who's finding our podcast and you're like, I just started CrossFit, or I don't know what CrossFit is, you're not going to know how to do a power clean. You're not going to know how to do a back squat, like whatever it may be, but at least you're trying. Like, who cares if you don't exactly know what you're doing? That's why there's people there to help you.
Exactly. I think one of the things too is that we have to realize that our habits are linked to our identity. Mm-hmm. Right? Who I am as a person is because of the daily decisions I make. Right. Right? And the daily habits I make. Mm-hmm. If I choose to sleep in and I choose to not have made good choices about what we keep in our house for breakfast, or make good choices about what I kind of want to snack on, or show up to the gym, or coordinate my schedule where I can have these things where I can do them, then yeah, I'm going to be lazy, right? And that's who my identity is probably going to be.
Right.
Right? Just a lazy person. But, you know, Robin, we talk about Robin a lot on this.
We do. We love Robin. Hello, Robin.
Robin sent me an article, and it was a quote by the late Kobe Bryant. And he talks about that the quote is because of 4 a.m. He's not great because he has some God-given talent or all the things. It's because of 4 a.m. Because he gets up and he puts the work in. Nobody would ever define Kobe Bryant as lazy. Right? Because of 4 a.m., he put the work in. That it was his identity. Was a hard worker. He's going to outwork everyone. And I think that's kind of the thing when we talk about habits, right? That's his identity.
Right.
And he is a product of his habits. And I think too often we kind of forget, well, we want to say we're a product of the situation we're in, right? Or I'm a product of how I grew up.
But that's definitely not true. And I think you and I could attest to that, especially. Is it okay if I kind of tell your story?
No, go ahead.
So for those of you that don't know, Andy lost his dad when he was 14.
Yeah, just turned 14.
Yeah. And then he lost his mom not that long after he married Shelby. And then I lost my dad when I was 17. So I guess that's been almost 4 years ago now, 3 years, something like that. And I would definitely say we are not a product of what that did to us. I would say definitely made us stronger, and it's all about the way that you handle every single situation.
Yeah, but I think too, it's a testament to how, you know, your parents raised you and my parents raised me, is that it's how I choose to handle the situation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The choices or habits, right? We can sometimes use those terms, you know, interchangeably, is how I handled it. Right. I can choose, just like I can choose a bad habit, I can make a bad choice. Right. And not want to do those things, or, you know, put my faith in God, or rely on, you know, my friends and family to help kind of pull you through what is a bad situation. Right. Something I don't wish on my worst enemy, but it's something that I know I can come out on the other side of, because I've seen good choices. You know, my parents raised me, and to this day, you know, that was 2003 that my father passed away. You know, to this day, I can still say, hey, you know what? Because of good choices, and I chose joy and happiness over everything else, it's impacted my life that much better. Yeah. Right? Like,
for sure.
That's just how I'm going to look at something.
And I think that's something we preach a lot too. And I know I personally preach this to my clients. I am so big on finding the silver lining in every situation and choosing joy every single time. And maybe if you are thinking about kind of forming a bad habit or a bad decision out of a bad situation, maybe channel that energy into something that you know is good for you. So like working out or eating healthy. And it doesn't even have to be working out. It could just be like literally whatever you're passionate about. And I think that really helps. And I think if you choose to not choose joy, it can seriously destroy your whole life.
Yeah, it'll put you down a dark road that you don't want to go down, you know. I think too, one of the things, you know, there's a common myth talking about habits. Well, it takes, you know, whatever, 21 days, 28 days, maybe for some people. But the more we look at it, especially watching people here in the gym, is that it's more around that like 6 to 8 week mark, right? Like I always tell people when they say, well, how long, you know, until I'm consistent? I mean, 6 to 8 weeks, you know, we're looking at that probably 2 months-ish. Is kind of, I always tell people, like, give us 2 to 3 months. Give me 2 to 3 months, and I promise this is a place you'll want to be. Right. And so making the choice at the beginning to say, I'm committed to this for 6 weeks. Yeah. Right? I'm not, well, I'll go try it one time. I'll make one good choice in my life. You know, I'll do one good habit. But commit to, a time frame to try something, not just one time.
For sure. People think that change happens overnight, but change and choosing to do what is best for you in your life and what fills your cup up is something that you constantly have to do every single day. I mean, it's like, if any of you have anxiety, like, anxiety doesn't just go away overnight. You have to actually work for it for months and months and months and months. And it never goes away, but it gets easier. And it's the same thing with working out. Like, CrossFit is always going to be kind of hard. You're always going to be sore at certain times, but it does get easier to run a mile. And now you're going to be out of breath, but at least it was easier than it was a week ago.
Yeah, we wouldn't come back if it was easy every time, though, right?
Right, for sure.
You know, like, I don't want the easy path.
Yeah.
The easy path, you know, you can refer to the parables, if you will, but it's easy to build my house on the sand. Mm-hmm. It goes up quick. It's hard to build my house on the rock, but my house on the rock is the one that's going to stand.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
So one of the things too, when we think about habits, right, is that one way to look at it is every time you make a good habit or make a good choice, you are making a vote for the person you want to become.
Yeah.
Right? So every time I choose to eat healthy, or I choose, you know, not to eat the ice cream, or I choose to stay and do that little bit of extra work at the gym, or I choose to find joy instead of think negatively about something, I'm making a vote for the person that I want to become, right? And we all know all I need is a majority vote to win, mm-hmm. right? Because the ugly is going to creep up every once in a while, right? And I'm not saying you're always going to make good decisions. So you might make a vote one time the wrong way. But if I can continue to just keep casting these votes for the person I want to become, eventually the majority is going to win.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, which I was actually just telling Andy, I listened to a podcast the other day, and it's the Gathering podcast. It's a really great one if any of you want to go listen to it. But they're basically, it's called A Taste of Grace, and they're basically talking about God's grace for you and your sins and things like that. But I was just telling him, I kind of compare that to working out and like nutrition. So like, for example, you know, maybe I ate a little too much one day, or I didn't make the best decisions nutritionally. That's okay. There's always tomorrow, and there's always a fresh start. And I think that goes back to bad habits, because people get so incredibly stuck on the fact that they didn't do so great in the gym one day, or the fact that they ate a little bit too much, or the fact that they just made a wrong life decision. And you don't have to let that define who you are or define your journey, because every single day is a fresh start. And people always complain about Mondays, but I actually love Mondays, because I always feel like they're like a new year. Like a Monday is the best day of the week, in my opinion. Yeah. I love them.
Well, I always took the approach like Monday means I'm one day closer to Friday, right? Like if you're kind of living for the weekend, yes, let's get to Monday, because this minute Monday starts, I know I'm that much closer to Friday.
Yeah.
You know, I used to take that approach. Like when I was in school, I can't wait to go back to school. I'm like, I'm ready. Like, let's go. Let's get it. Because the minute school starts, that means we're on to the next semester. We're that much closer to the next holiday, or whatever, right? You find that motivation that's going to motivate you to get where you want. But I'm a big fan. Like Monday's the new, let's start over.
Yeah.
And let's forget about last week.
Yeah, for sure. And if you like hang on to what you did that wasn't so great yesterday, or even like 2 years ago, you're not going to be a different person. It's just not going to happen. You have to let it go, and you have to start over, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. You know, I think the thing too is like, I don't want to sit here and preach completely, just like throw it out the window, like still remember it, because it was a bad choice.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm not going to obsess over it.
Right.
I'm going to know. Learn from it. I'm going to learn from it, but then I'm going to move on.
Right.
Right. So I think one of the things too, we talk about how your habits kind of make up your identity. And the more votes we cast, the more that becomes our identity. right? And so we'll stick with basketball analogies here, but there was a story, excuse me, about Larry Bird. For those of you who don't know, Carly's probably like, who's Larry Bird?
Yeah.
Famous basketball player, probably one of the prettiest jump shots you would ever see. He went to go film a commercial, and the director was like, hey, we just want you to make the jump shot, okay? But I want you to miss. And Larry's like, cool, got it. I can do that. Goes up, dribble, shoots, makes it. Oh, my bad. I got it this time. Dribble, shoots, makes it. He makes 9 jump shots in a row before he misses. Because he'd done it so many times.
It's a habit.
It was just a habit.
Mm-hmm.
It was that hard for him to miss. So, for him, that's how he made his money, right? That's who he was the fact that that jump shot was Larry Bird. Like, that's who you see. So whatever you want to be, if I want to be remembered as the guy who is always positive, then I have to choose my habits. I've got to choose positive habits.
Which, by the way, Andy will be remembered as that person because he's honestly the most positive person I know. If you don't know him personally, very positive guy.
Yeah, almost to the point sometimes it's probably annoying.
Yeah, you're like, Andy, shut up. Just be negative with me for a second.
Can you just be mad with me? So I think one of the, the big nuggets that I took away that I definitely want to share for you guys, and I'm just going to have to read it, is that bad habits provide immediate gratification, but they come with a delayed cost. Good habits usually have a delayed gratification, but come at an immediate cost. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, since this is a gym and we talk about food and nutrition and stuff like that, right? I get that big bowl of ice cream and it's the immediate gratification. I get that dopamine hit. The sugar hits me. It's sweet. It tastes so good. It's hot on the summer day. And then 30 minutes later, my stomach hurts because I usually don't eat those kind of things, and it's like, ugh. And then you get that kind of ugh feeling from something because you don't normally do that, right?
All the regret.
Yeah, and then there's all the regret of like, I shouldn't have done that, right? But it's the immediate gratification and the delayed cost.
Right.
On the inverse of that, I get the immediate cost of I don't get the dopamine hit. I kind of have to sit here and watch everybody else eat because I don't want to do that. Because I know, whatever, say it's at lunch, and I know, well, I'm going to work out at 4:30. I don't need to be eating ice cream at lunchtime if I'm going to go work out at 4:30.
Right.
Right? So I have immediate cost, and then my gratification comes at 4:30 when I finish the workout, and I don't feel like crap because I've got a bunch of milk and sugar and junk in my stomach. Right? And that's kind of a simple one. I'm not saying don't go eat ice cream at your kid's birthday or whatever, right? I know somebody's going to say, somebody's going to say, well, Andy said never do that, right? Blah, 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 blah.
To be fair, we love all the unhealthy things. We went to a gym conference and Andy had like a whole large pizza and Shelby and I had pasta. So
it was good, but I felt like crap the next day.
We did. We felt like crap.
Yeah. So I'm not, again, it's making a vote, right? I cast the wrong vote that day, but I've made better votes since then. So I think that's something kind of, we really have to think about is that the human in us, in the brain, the little devil on the shoulder is wanting that immediate gratification. And we could care less about the cost at that point. But, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, we've made choices in our life that have set us up that's what we're focusing on. Right. And we'll get to that. But, and really, guys, you could put this in any aspect of your life.
Yeah.
About these habits, not just nutritionally, wherever, right? Relationally.
It could be like communication. Like I know that's something a lot of people struggle with. And maybe you're trying to work on communication with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your spouse or just like friends or parents or whatever it may be. And maybe you get like really defensive. I know that's something I do a lot. And maybe you kind of like raise your voice a little bit and you're like, and you're not meaning to tell that person that the way they feel is wrong, but to them, that's how they're perceiving it and that's how it's coming off. And so maybe if you want to break that cycle, you need to take a step back and you need to say, okay, what am I doing that is affecting this person that I love so much, and how can I be better for them?
Yeah. You know, and I think that's too is and Shelby and I always talk about this. September will be 10 years for us as a married couple, and
goals.
Yeah, hashtag goals. No, I'm looking at like Miss Sandra and Mr. Mike. Like,
oh my gosh,
that's
yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
One of the big things somebody told us is that, hey, you're on the same team.
Mm-hmm,
right?
For sure. Why would you want your team member to lose?
Yeah. And so like, I don't intentionally make you, like, it's not my job and I didn't make the choice to make you mad.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I'm doing. We are on the same team. It's very easy to forget that.
Right.
Right. And just like being on a team, you know, I remember I used to get upset and frustrated with my team members because I'm like, you know better.
Right.
You know, and I think that's where like relationally we get in that is like, you know better.
Right.
Like, I expect a certain thing out of you and you're not providing that. And that's where we get frustrated. But we have to take that step back and be like, hey, wait a second. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
Right. I've screwed up before.
Yeah.
Let's give some grace.
And I think when you're like new to like relationships or you're in a long-term relationship for the first time, I know personally this is something Adam and I have struggled with, which is Andy's godson and my boyfriend, if you don't know. But like, I think we used to kind of be like, okay, who's going to win this argument?
Oh, yeah.
And nobody should win. Like, that's whoever created that like stigma.
Well, they
so
should.
Stupid.
You both should win.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But no one, or I guess I should say no one should lose.
Right.
Because if you lose, your partner loses.
Exactly.
And why would you want your partner to lose? Like, that's very selfish.
Well, it's just like us here, right? And we're derailing from the habits conversation.
Yeah, sorry.
But like, we don't want you to lose as a gym member. So we want to provide you with, you know, information about good habit change, right? I think one of the other big things I had in here is that people don't intentionally choose the bad habit, right?
Yeah.
They just kind of sneak up on us. We have to protect that by being intentional with our good habits.
I love that word.
Intentional?
Intentional is one of my favorite words ever.
Right? So like, I don't just like, yep, just gonna eat ice cream today, right? I haven't been intentional about my good habits, or I'm not gonna work out. Like, I wasn't intentional. I didn't make a plan for the week.
Right.
Right? If I sit down on Sunday and it doesn't have to be something you write out or whatever. I'm a big person, like, again, Shelby's like, hey, we need to write it down. I'm like, it's all right here.
Oh, I'm a big list person.
Yeah, no.
I have my notebook. I cross it off.
It's all in my head. I'm like, I've got a plan for the week. And I kind of run through each day. And I know this is the ideal time for me to work out this day. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I need to be intentional about planning the week out. I need to be intentional about, okay, what night am I going to be home? Am I going to be able to cook dinner? You know, and my schedule changes. It can kind of, you know, a phone call away from that changing, but that doesn't give me the excuse to be like, well, I'm just not going to plan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it could all change, so I'm just not going to do anything. Mm-hmm. That would be unintentional.
Yeah.
Right? So really focusing on being intentional about good choices, being intentional about creating the good habits will help protect us from the bad ones.
Right.
And I think going through that, and that's an art.
Oh, yeah.
Like that comes with time.
I will tell you though, and I really get on my soapbox about this one, so I'll try not to, but excuses are the beginning of not being intentional with your life. Mm-hmm. Like, I cannot tell you how many times people walk into this office every single day and tell me that they're busy. Newsflash, we're all busy.
Yeah.
Everyone is their own kind of busy, right?
Right.
So that's literally not an excuse. You have 30 minutes. You have an hour where you're probably just sitting on your phone scrolling on Instagram thinking you're busy, but you're actually not.
Well,
right?
it's too, like, I'm a big fan of priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be busy, or did you just not prioritize how you should
Right.
have?
Exactly. And I think people don't understand that when it comes to the gym and when it comes to working out and when it comes to putting whole foods in your body, I think that they don't realize that they're doing that for themselves, because it almost seems like it's like a chore for people. And I don't know why it's made out to be that way, because it shouldn't be a chore to love yourself and to love your body. And we talk about prioritizing, and I always ask people, like, when they say they're busy, I'm like, okay, tell me your priorities. And they list like all of these things, like 5 things on one hand. And I'm like, okay, but where are you on that list? And you should be number 1. And then it should be everything else. Because if you're not number 1, then you're going to be creating these bad habits, and you're not going to be being intentional about your life.
Well, and I think too, like, a lot of people have a personality of being a giver, right? And that's, science proves, like, we get more dopamine out of giving than we do out of getting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so, number 1, we feel like we have to give to everybody else, and we feel guilty for getting, even if it's getting love from ourselves.
Right.
We feel guilty that I'm prioritizing me
Right.
over you. Right. And so it's hard to go down that road. But again, you know, to full circle back to a habit, like, you've got to make it be intentional about making it a healthy habit to focus on you.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing.
Right. And it doesn't have to be like, maybe you are someone who's just a giver and you have a really hard time saying no. I used to be that way as well, and I still can be. But it's those little steps. If you wake up and you say, okay, today I'm going to actually do something for myself, it doesn't have to be something that you do for an hour. Like, just take 5 minutes to just sit in a silent room and just like decompress, just breathe.
Oh yeah. And I'll get to that here in a second about not creating new habits, just tweaking the ones we have.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
No, you're good. You're good. You know, I think one of the other things I wrote down here is successful habit change is about making good habits easy and bad habits hard, right?
Right.
So how do I make those good habits easy? You know, the first one is, to me, is make it obvious, right? Make the good habit obvious to you. In the sermon that I listened to, Pastor Will, he's a CrossFitter. Shout out to Pastor Will. He talks about that. He makes it obvious about getting ready for the gym the next day. When he gets home, he takes the dirty gym clothes out of his gym bag, puts clean clothes back in his gym bag, and then sets it where he has to trip over it when he walks out of his bedroom door. Like, he makes it very obvious that the gym is a priority and it's a good habit that he needs to do.
Yeah.
And I think it would, you know, and that's kind of a real life physical manifestation of that good habit or good choice.
Right.
Right. The other thing he talks about in there is it has to be easy, right? You'd never want to make it a chore to do a good habit. And so, like, I'm a big fan of when we talk about, like, nutritionally, like, it doesn't have to be some big crazy, I've got a meal prep for 5 hours, and
Which it doesn't take 5 hours.
No, it
by
doesn't.
The way. It takes 2 tops.
It doesn't, but make it as easy as you can, right? Like, I order done for you meals. Does it cost money? Yes.
Plug.
Yeah, hashtag plug. We just went down on the price too. $9.99 per meal. But it's easy, right?
Right.
It's so much easier. I throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and here I have this personally proportioned meal that I need, that I know is it's a good habit.
Right.
Nutritionally, it's a good choice.
Maybe you like to cook, or maybe you don't know that you like to cook.
Yeah.
I didn't really know that I liked to cook until I started my health and fitness journey like 3 years ago. And I'm a huge cooker. Like, I cook everything. Y'all, I meal prep on Sundays. I love it. I rarely like go out to eat or order something because I just love to cook, and meal prepping has taught me that I like to cook. So you just have to find what you're passionate about, and then it's not a chore anymore.
Yeah, no. And if I know that it's going to give me the vote to be the person I want to be, then it should be easy to cast that vote, right? So for me, I know, like, I have to make it easy. We've got 3 kids, and it's not an excuse, right? I'm not a cooker. I don't enjoy it. It's not something fun, because I'd rather be intentional about my time with my children or my spouse, or go do something.
And that's him prioritizing.
Yeah, that's me prioritizing that. So I'm okay saying we're going to build it in our budget that I can choose to spend the money on these meals.
Yeah, for sure.
Or I have to cut other things out. Or if we say, hey, you know what? Now we can't afford this because whatever, it's Christmas time or something happened. Well, then now I need to be intentional about becoming passionate about cooking again. Right. Or I know personally I'm going to choose the bad habit. It's going to be a lot easier to just pull through fast food or run in and get, something at H-E-B I probably shouldn't.
Right.
But it's being intentional.
Right. And being intentional is all about sacrifice. And it's about balance too. I definitely don't want it to come off as like we're standing up here and being like, we're perfect, we're intentional about everything, because we're definitely not.
No.
We're human, just like everybody else. We love French fries, just like everybody else. But I know that if I'm not intentional about what I'm doing, that I'm probably not sacrificing enough. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Like, for example, people are like, well, I'm doing this nutrition program and like now I have to like bring my own meal prep food to this party or to this event or to my cousin's house on Sunday for Sunday lunch because they're having mac and cheese and I can't have mac and cheese. Well, yeah, that's the sacrifice that you make when you do a program like this. And if you want the results that you're wanting to achieve, you have to do that. And that's kind of just how it is. And eventually, maybe you won't have to do that anymore. And you'll be able to find that balance of being intentional, but also like earning it or like treating yourself.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start at the beginning.
No. And I think that's kind of, equated to parenting, right? Like that's something Shelby and I can equate to right now, is that it's hard with a 5-month-old. Right. We are intentional and we have to make the sacrifice because we love this child, that yes, there's some sleepless nights in there. And yes, there's some things we don't get to go do with friends because we have a 5-month-old baby. Right. But I know if I am intentional about what I do with this child, and I'm intentional about loving this child and caring for this child and raising this child, right, the benefit will come later.
Yeah.
Right. And eventually I will get to the point where I have raised this child that I can leave her at home, or I can do whatever because I've poured enough into them that I trust them.
And then you come home and they have like a Project X party and you're like, oh, what did I do?
Yeah. Like, dang it. Bad choice. No. The last thing about making your habits is make it doable, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's kind of where I find it easier to tweak an existing habit than to create a whole new one, right? Mm-hmm. So if I say, hey, I want to go to the gym 5 days a week. Well, are you going 1 right now? So, or whatever, right? Walk for 5 minutes, right? And do that for a week. And then guess what? It's a lot easier to walk 10 minutes the next week.
Yeah.
And then it's a lot easier to walk 20 minutes the next week. But I think too often we try to like rush into it and like have to do all this stuff.
Right.
And then it just overwhelms us. And then we don't know what to do. Yeah, you're like, I can't do this anymore. Right. So and you can get into some science on habits of like triggers and rewards. What triggers the habit? What's the reward? But find something that you can just tweak to create a better habit, right? Mm-hmm. So if you like cooking, right, that's your habit is cooking. Let's just cook something a little bit healthier, right? If you're whatever, use that. But the inverse of making your habits, right, something easy, is the bad habits, we've got to flip them, right? So like, instead of making it obvious, make it invisible. And I think that's like, take the bad stuff out. Don't buy the junk food.
Yeah. If it's not there, you're not going to eat it. Yeah. I hate, and if my mom listens to this, honestly, I have no idea if she does, but I'm calling you out, Mom. She buys like Doritos or like Cheez-Its or all the good things that we all know and love. And I'm like, why do you do that? Because I know that I'm probably going to reach for that next time I open the door of the pantry rather than like a protein bar or whatever it might be.
Right.
So like, don't set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. Make it invisible. Make it not there.
Right.
That's how it should be.
Right.
Right. And the other one, you know, we talked about make your good habits easy. Make the bad habits hard. Mm-hmm. Like, make them hard to do. You know, if you know, idle hands are the devil's playground, right? So if you know you're a person that's just going to waste time on social media doing stuff, schedule your day where you don't give yourself time for that, mm-hmm. right? Or whatever it is, like I feel like this is a pretty simple concept. Make it hard.
Yeah.
And when you are in the position where you've cast a bunch of votes to have this kind of new identity that you want, you're going down that road. When you're in that mindset, be very intentional about all the things you shouldn't be doing and make them hard to do.
Right.
Take that stuff out of the house. Do whatever you need to do.
Put your phone in the other room.
Yeah, put your phone in the other room.
I mean, I will willingly admit I'm the first one to sit on my phone for hours whenever I should be doing homework or stuff for the gym or whatever it may be. And I literally have to put my phone in another place. And that's okay. Like, it's fine. It'll be there whenever you get back. All the mumbo jumbo on social media will be there. I promise. You're not missing anything. You're actually doing something good for yourself and you're feeling accomplished because you got everything that you were supposed to do that day done. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think the last thing is and this could be put in any part of your aspect of your life, is make it undoable. Like, I can't even do it. Physically, I can't do the bad habit because I've set myself up. Like, I've set boundaries in my life mm-hmm. that make it where I can't do those things.
Right.
Right. And you could get down a super tangent of relationships, right? Like, Shelby and I are married. We're happily married. I make it undoable. I try and to be very intentional about not putting myself in a position that I would ever jeopardize that, right?
Right.
And this is a Pastor Will thing, but he talks about how, like, you never know where the line is until you've stepped over it.
Right.
Right? So just like a road, there's guardrails. That's not the end of the road.
Right.
There's still some road on the other side of the guardrail, but you have to put the guardrails up.
Right.
And you've got to stay within the guardrails.
Right.
And we could do that with any aspect of our life. We have to make the bad stuff is at the other side of the road.
Yeah.
Right. But I've put the guardrails up where physically I can't go over there.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
I've made it undoable.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reminder, and even as I sit here and talk about it, like, it's a reminder to just, this is what we need to do. Mm-hmm. So that's the big gist of habits that I have.
I did want to touch on something. So I know we've kind of talked about, like, start small, work your way up to, like, all these habits and all these things you want to do and the person you want to become. But some people are kind of like, okay, but, like, still, what do I do? And so something I do, and I do this, like, a few times a year, probably like 2 to 3 times a year. I'll sit down and I'll take like 30 minutes or however long I need, and I'll journal a little bit about, like, what I see for myself short term and what I see for myself long term. And mm-hmm. that helps me be intentional. And kind of just, and it doesn't have to be like 10 grand things that you see for yourself in the scheme of life. It could be like fitness related. Like, one day, which I need to be more intentional about this.
See, we talk about it.
One day I want to be able to do pull-ups, like, without a band, without, like, any help. And so I know that I have to intentionally come to the gym, practice that, and work hard. Yep. Right. And so that's a small, short-term goal in like the grand scheme of things. Or it could be like, in 2 years, I want to save $3,000 or whatever it might be. And you know that that's going to take a little longer, but you have to start right then. You can't just write all of these things down and say that you want to achieve these things or become this person and then just not.
Oh, yeah. No, like there's
because what's the point?
Yeah, there's some stuff like as a family and as a man, I've said, hey, 2020, I'm going to do these things, right? Like I need to have X amount of stuff done by December. And then I start looking backwards and I'm like, it's February 12th. And if I break that down, I only have, I got to have part of this plan for it to be implemented and done by December. Like something has to happen by March 30th.
Yeah.
Like I've got to have some big goals accomplished. A lot of work still needs to be done by March 30th.
For sure.
So, I think that's super important is again, making that vote, being intentional, have a plan to what needs to happen, because it's real easy to just sit here and say, well, yeah, I want to do that.
Right.
Okay.
It needs to be measurable. You can't just say, I'm going to do this and that's it. It's like, okay, but when are you going to do that? And how are you going to get there? And what kind of person do you need to be able to get there? There's all these, and I could go into like a whole thing about this, but there's all these different ways that you have to be able to break that down and truly visualize it. And I'm like really big on manifesting. And that's kind of like my version of like praying. Yeah. Is like actually saying what I need from the Lord out loud. So being like, Lord, I need you to make me more intentional with my health and fitness so that I can do pull-ups and I can be the coach that I want to be one day. Right.
Yeah. No, I think it's super important to do that, because like I said, it'll get lost, especially as life happens and things get busier and more stuff gets added onto the plate. You're just kind of like, oh, I looked up and it's 6 months later, and so the having something, and that's the beauty of like CrossFit, right? Let's like go full circle. I always tell people like fitness has to be measurable and repeatable, right? Like if I define fitness and put it out there, how do I know if I'm becoming more fit?
Right.
I've got to be, and that's the whole point behind benchmark workouts. That's the whole point behind retests. Like we just don't want to see how, like, yes, I want to know if you're strong, but I also want to know if you're getting more fit. Right. Because that's our job as a gym. Well, one of our jobs is to increase your fitness level. So I've got to be able to measure it, repeat it, just like everything else. Right.
And that's why it's also important to surround yourself. Sorry if this is a long episode. It's important to surround yourself with, we always say, like-minded people. And that's what we say a lot when we talk about the community that we've built here. Because those people notice the changes in you as well. And oftentimes the people who are closest to us see the change before we do. So whether it be a negative change or a positive change, I guarantee you if tomorrow I flipped a switch and was just a B word, Andy would be like, what is your deal? And maybe I wouldn't even notice. Maybe I wouldn't realize that I stopped waking up at 5 a.m. Maybe I wouldn't realize that I'm not giving 100% to my clients. But Andy would notice because he's very close to me. And people at the gym would notice because they see me every day and they see the kind of person that I've wanted myself to become and that I've built for myself. So these changes are instantaneous and you can't let that happen if it's a negative change.
Yeah, and I think it's intentional, and we'll wrap it up because this one is getting long. But something I've always preached, always, is you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? You're not the top, you're not the bottom. And the intent, right, is that I always try to average myself up, right? So I'm constantly seeking out people to surround myself with to bring my average up, right? That doesn't mean like ditch your friends. Right. But that's kind of the cool thing here is we are surrounding ourselves with people, right? And if I'm the most fit person, then I need to seek out somebody who is more fit than me, right, to help average that up, right? If there is somebody that makes better choices than me, I can see that day in and day out, or has better habits, then I need to seek that person out
Right.
and spend more time with them.
And it's about learning from them too, and not being envious of what
Right.
they are or what they have, because there's all these aspects of their life that you probably don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just looking at, like, if you are looking at fitness, the superficial aspect of it.
Right.
So you shouldn't be envious about what they have. You should just say, pick their brain, just be like, how did you get here? How did you become this person? And you can do that with any qualities or traits that you're looking to have in life.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean just because they're super fit, like they've got everything else figured out.
Right.
But I know, like, hey, if I want to do this, then I need to kind of surround myself with that person for this reason.
Right. And maybe the people in your life that aren't so much that way will start to become that way too.
Yeah.
So it's all about, like, a waterfall and, like, a trickle down effect.
Exactly. Well, guys, we appreciate you listening on this one. We know we went kind of long, but it's very easy when we're passionate about a certain topic.
Yeah.
Be sure to check us out, social media, Facebook, Instagram. Reach out, info@brenhamcrossfit.com. Check out the website. All the good things. Am I forgetting anything?
I
We'll put some
don't
announcements
think
in the
so.
beginning
Yeah.
for everybody. But see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.